Beth's still kind of hiding behind me, but she's the Enneagram expert. 2014 comes around and we end up taking a risk and taking a job that I was really excited about. I was going to be an executive pastor at a larger church. It was a step of faith. And 4 months in, I knew we were in trouble.
Welcome to the In-Between, a space for anyone navigating from the familiar to the unknown. Whether you're facing a personal, professional, or spiritual disruption, these conversations are here to help guide you through the questions, uncertainties, and opportunities that come with change. Hear from leaders, thinkers, and storytellers who found their way forward, and learn how you can too. No matter where you're starting, you don't have to navigate this alone. Today I'm sitting down with Beth and Jeff McCord, best-selling authors and founders of Your Enneagram Coach. With more than 30 years of marriage and ministry experience, they've helped thousands of individuals and couples experience deeper connection, self-awareness, and transformation. Together, they've built one of the largest faith-based Enneagram communities in the world, equipping people to see themselves with clarity and live with greater compassion and purpose. So, Jeff and Beth, thank you both for having this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Just knowing the context that we're going to talk about this, what you just read, the months before we left the job that moved us to Nashville, we would have never dreamed of any of that.
Right.
It was dear to our hearts, like everything. This was the fullest expression of our marriage and sense of calling together, but it's kind of wild.
Yeah, it is. It's been a wild ride.
Well, it's super encouraging, and I think people will find a lot of hope in your guys' story as well. And I was talking with a friend the other day about how sometimes things can just open up and turn on a dime, and things that we didn't see coming or expect to see coming can all of a sudden open up. And so with that being said, together, you guys have coached individuals and leaders and couples through so many different kinds of transitions, and you just alluded to it. Could you share a bit of your own journey that it's led you to the work that you're doing today?
Yeah.
Well, it goes way back.
Way back.
I was a poor boy. So Beth and I, we got married at the age of 20 while we were still in school at the end of our sophomore year. Went to be on staff with a campus ministry with the hopes of one day going to seminary and then going to be part of a local church. About 6 years into marriage, we're in seminary finally, and my mentors are going through the kind of late 20s, early 30s marital and family crises. Their therapist introduced them to the Enneagram, and that book found its way into our lives. I skimmed it the way that I skim everything, but I was also in seminary, but Beth devoured it. That's 2001. Now, fast forward to 2014.
Okay. Wow.
Is that what
we're jumping?
We're jumping.
Okay.
Well, okay. Another little iteration of this is that we eventually find ourselves pastoring in, I was an executive pastor type, always the number 2 guy. Beth was the pastor wife. She was Pastor Jeff's husband.
I was his husband.
Wife. I got confused of what it is now because it's radically changed.
What, that I was the husband?
No, that's it's so funny. Showing up with some humor. It's awesome. But we had started to talk a little bit about the Enneagram with the congregation, and it kind of took off in the community. So Beth had some entrepreneurial gifts. She had started a pampered chef business while in seminary to get us new kitchen gear.
So we didn't have the money for it. So
yeah,
why not?
Our first staff role was in Kansas City, and you were diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and you got a hold of a supplement and started 2 very profitable nutraceutical multi-level marketing companies. You did really well. Beth has always been entrepreneurial, but her story was not conducive to that. Parents, you don't take risk, and then she's pastor wife, and so Jeff is up front. Fast forward to, and so it takes off. We start doing some presentations, Enneagram expert. 2014 comes around and we end up taking a risk and taking a job that I was really excited about. I was going to be an executive pastor at a larger church. It was a step of faith. And 4 months in, I knew we were in trouble. Now, please understand, the church I was leaving was 100% engaged in the process. I was talking with them about leaving, and they were supportive of leaving. They even sent, one of the elders came down and kind of blessed the new congregation and said, hey, take care of Jeff. So this was not, there was nothing wrong. Like, sought wise counsel. We prayed about it. Our kids, we talked to them about it. Everybody was on board. How did you feel about making that transition?
Oh, I was super excited. Yeah.
Like, you were excited for me, and you're ready to make the sacrifices necessary.
Yeah, because the kids and I had been in Nashville like 2 years prior and just fell in love with it. So when the opportunity came, it was like, oh my gosh, maybe, that experience was to pave the way. Because I don't know if I would have been open to the idea of just moving, but I was really excited about the idea of living here. And so I think it just kind of felt like the natural direction to go.
Yeah. So in the midst of I kind of proposed my first enhancement to the organization. It was not received well. And the response was disproportionate to the changes I was proposing.
Well, and you were asked.
I was asked to do this. That's right.
To do it.
That was my role for the first 4 months. It wasn't like you were just saying,
hey, there are some problems here. Like, you're literally,
hey, Jeff, we want you to come in and organize this place. Oh, wait a minute. We got what we asked for. And no, we don't want that. That was the first, but it was the disproportional response that I experienced that it was jarring. Well, Beth at the time goes on help.com and gets care.com. So she's cleaning some people's houses. Like, she's like a personal assistant for some
grocery
family.
shopping.
She eventually calls me one day and says, hey, do you happen to know a Michael Hyatt guy? I'm like, yeah, I was just reading his book last year. At that point, it was Platform, his best-selling book on building a digital platform. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Are you serious?
I was like, yes, his daughter wants me to work for her. And she's now the CEO of Full Focus, Megan Hyatt Miller. And I was like, yeah, sure. So I ended up working for Megan for quite a season and just loved it. And I was so blessed that I got to listen to all their stuff and learn, kind of watch behind the scenes a little bit, because I wasn't a part of the company. But I got to see a lot or hear a lot of what was going on. And then I eventually worked for Michael and Gail as their personal assistant and got to obviously see and hear more. And they are the real deal. I mean, they're fantastic.
Yeah. The amazing part about that particular season was Ian Cron was riding the road back to you in the Hyatt's carriage house in their backyard.
Yeah. Okay. While I'm thinking of all the ways that I want to use the Enneagram, which this all has a part.
I mean, you didn't even know who Ian was at that point.
No.
Yeah, because we didn't read that voraciously, but Ian was a best-selling author by then.
Yeah. But he wasn't in the Enneagram space at that time because he was writing the book. Mm. And so I had asked and prompted, especially Megan, like, hey, do you know about the Enneagram? Because I mean, by this time I'm like super deep in it.
Yeah.
She's like, I kind of heard of it, but we really like Myers-Briggs, and that made sense. And I mean, this is before the Enneagram became big. And I was like, bummer, it doesn't sound like she's super interested in kind of taking a closer look or a deeper dive. Well, that was before Ian then introduced it to them. And Ian's like Michael's best friend. So then once Ian introduced it, then they're really excited, which makes total sense. I mean, I'm just, the personal assistant. So then it kind of started to snowball, from their perspective, but not yet because the book hadn't been released. And so
I'm going through the church things. I mean, in my mind, thankfully I don't have the same kind of physiological response to the dynamics as I used to, because my chest would tighten up, my stomach would tighten up, like I could start feeling it in my body. 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 12 months in, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And now we're talking about a change in role. At the time, I'm going through some training Dan Allender did some training for pastors to help with people with trauma. So I'm literally, I wouldn't say it was certainly a traumatic event. I wouldn't say that there was necessarily any kind of abuse that was happening, but the dynamics were troubling to us because we had just moved. Mm-hmm. Our daughter was in 7th grade. Our son was in 9th grade. They're not clicking with the Southern culture. Like they were not accustomed to that. So they were having trouble making friends. Our son got whooping cough that year, which was out of.
And just for the record, he was vaccinated.
He was vaccinated.
But he's a non-responder, which is why vaccinations are so important. Yes, I'm a mom and I'll get on my soapbox.
It was so scary that season.
But there, so there were kids in his tutorial that didn't have vaccinations and they got it, which then for him who didn't respond to the vaccination, he then got it. It was super scary. It lasted forever. Anyway.
So that to say, after 12 months, I take a sabbatical. I was put on sabbatical and got connected with a ministry. I don't know if they still exist or not, but thankfully they were aware of my situation and were very supportive and helpful. Had to go through all kinds of psychological evaluations, trying to figure out if Jeff has a problem. And they kept coming back with Jeff doesn't have a problem. And that wasn't changing the trajectory that I was on with the church. And so we realized, hey, if nothing's going to change, we're not going to go back.
Hey, friends, I want to pause just for a moment. If you're navigating the complex and emotional process of leaving a mission-driven role, whether that's been ministry, nonprofit work, or any purpose-driven career, you're not just looking for a new job. You're wrestling with things like the personal, professional, and spiritual dynamics that come with all of this. Maybe you're asking things like, who am I outside of this role? What skills do I even have that can translate into the future? Will I ever find work that feels meaningful again? If this is resonating, download Finding Your Way to Flourishing. It's a free guide that I've put together for mission-driven leaders who find themselves in the midst of transition. This isn't just another guide. It's a thoughtfully crafted resource that's designed to help you begin processing your identity beyond the role that you're leaving. It can help you pinpoint which skills you can confidently bring into your new and next role. It'll help you lean into your faith and find peace during the midst of this uncertainty. Not overwhelming, it's not complicated. It's just the first step to getting some clarity and moving forward. You don't have to figure this all out alone, and I'd love to walk this journey with you. This guide is completely free, and you can grab your copy today by clicking the link in the description or in the show notes. Let's start making some sense of this transition together. Okay, now back to the conversation.
And they're like, yep, okay, that's fine. And so we got a really nice severance to stay quiet about the details.
Wow.
And so now we're in a position where we've only been in Nashville for a little over a year.
At that time.
At that time, our kids were having to decide, okay, what are we going to do for school? Because they don't want to go back to public school. That was too difficult. But we don't want to move them again because they were starting to get a little bit of traction relationally. But what do we do?
Yeah.
Because now we don't have any resources.
Well, yeah, so you didn't have the job and I worked part-time for the Hyatts.
So that was the context that we finally came to the agreement. I would start a pastoral counseling and mediation business called Restoring Peace because I had been trained to do that kind of work before. And then Beth would start a company, which this is kind of interesting. This speaks of one of the questions that you had sent us before about how do we respond to change? And some was intentional that we embraced, some we were more resistant to, but the actual name of the company is Beth and McCord and Company. And we do business as Your Enneagram Coach because both of us agreed we didn't want this to be another Jeff thing. And Beth just kind of yield to the pastor wife role.
No, okay, hold on, back up. And I wanted to put my company under Restoring Peace.
At one point you did, that's right.
And he was like, no, like you need to do, as I'm a type 9. So it's like, let's just merge, And then I would have just fallen into the same trap. And he knew that. And he was like, no, like I want you to have your own thing. Like, that you're really
wanted
good
you. Yeah, we wanted you.
We did. But I'm just saying, had it at that moment been left up just to me, I would have easily allowed it to be integrated.
But I mean, but
I'm super thankful.
I find that aspect of our story to be fascinating, and I hope affirming to a lot of other couples going through that, where so much energy
you can do scary things
was focused on my career. Mm-hmm. And out of nowhere, we're into this very scary situation that we had not faced prior in marriage. And now, like, what do we do? And all of a sudden, it's the gift is in your lap. I mean, it's the Enneagram is about to explode, and we don't realize it.
Yeah, we didn't know it. But I was thinking, okay, what am I passionate about? I'm passionate about coaching people, which, you know, in the Christian world's discipleship, and obviously my faith. And then I'm obviously really passionate about the Enneagram. So what if I smush them all together? Because this is before Enneagram coaching was really a thing. And I was like, oh, that sounds so exciting and fun. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to get my certification, which you had tried to get me to get it many years before, but it was expensive. But at this time, it made sense.
I mean, in those days, to get Enneagram books, you had to go to Borders or Barnes and Nobles and into the New Age sections. Yeah, like you were way outside of Christianity at this point. So it's not what it was.
Yeah. Well, and which is why we were passionate about using it the way we were using it from a biblical perspective and sharing it with people in that way so that they could grow in their faith. So all that to be said, you know, I went ahead and just decided, because of being with Michael Hyatt and company, which is what it was called at the time. Now it's Full Focus, and having all of those resources and books and videos to watch, I was learning so much about how to build a platform. And I just was like, I don't think this is going to really work, but I'm going to give it a try because we need something to happen. And this is what I'm passionate about. So I got my certification. I got out there and started putting stuff on Instagram, and it started getting more followers and some clients. And I was like, wow, this is actually taking traction. And that was the winter, spring of 2016 in the summer.
So we leave the church in fall of 2015. In probably January, February, you decide to get a certification.
And then so all of this was happening. And around September, I had several people asking me, do you certify or do you train coaches? And I'm like, and that's one of my greatest gifts is to...
That's a top 5 strength finder.
Yeah. And I was like, let me think about that. And then the next day I was like, yes I do.
Yeah.
And so I got about 11 students, which was really, you know, helped kind of seed money for future things.
The pictures are ridiculous of you doing it. Like we were horrible at it.
Hey, it worked. Sometimes there was one
module that
make it better later.
The students called it the dog episode because the dog was barking, and we had this Yeti mic that picked up every sound in the house, and so you just hear the dog barking.
You can do hard things and then make them better later.
I want to ask a question as you guys are talking about that. So I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, but like you being around those individuals and in that environment, getting a glimpse or a vision of what could be possible, was anything like developing in you, like foreseeing what could be possible, all while, Jeff, you're going through, like, obviously you both are going through these things together, but you're going through this heart-wrenching, difficult time of maybe a dream dying and something coming to life inside of you, Beth?
We were on very different paths for understandable reasons and ways. I mean, I was hurting too. I mean, we had spent an entire year and a half pouring our lives and affection into a congregation that we really did love and had great friendships, and they were gone. It was all gone.
Yeah, but it was all done, and providentially, it was, hey, the McCords are going to go on sabbatical. We're going to give them a break. Well, congregation didn't know what was going on, and nor did anybody think that the relationship was going to end. But that just meant that, yikes, now we've got nothing. And there's all this suspicion of why did Jeff leave?
So with being with Michael Hyatt and company, on one side, it was amazing because, I'm seeing them build a studio in one of their bedrooms in their house so that he can literally just go and do the thing. Well, that's what this is. So if you could take the camera and spin it around, you would see that we're in a really small walk-in attic that we've converted into a studio. And so I can now come in here and basically click on a few buttons and start recording. So yes, it gave me so much, and really us vision, because I'm going to be honest, without him, a lot of this stuff wouldn't happen because he's the get it done guy. I'm the, I want to do this or I want to do that.
So there was certainly both. There's a lot of grief and sorrow and fear. and hope. And
yeah,
because I just think of us sitting in Chewy's, sharing fajitas for one on a date night in this situation because we didn't have a lot of money and
eat a lot of chips.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, their queso's good.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so Beth says, like, I think this could be a really big thing.
Yeah,
and I'm like, slow your roll.
And here's the thing. So as a type 9, I had been thinking about this for a month and a half or more. Like, I had it outlined. I had thought about it very methodically, because if I'm going to present kind of what I want or my heart or my desire, which for a 9 takes forever to figure out, and it would be a big shift in our life, it could not go well potentially, because there's a lot of fear in that. But I'm like super excited and pumped because I got that entrepreneur spirit, and he was a little bit less excited.
I was less excited about the immediate,
right?
Which may have been what.
But it landed on me.
Page.
It landed on me like
you're not
a closed door, or and we had to work that out, and that was obviously it worked out.
I dove into recovery work, to be honest with you, during my sabbatical. The people I was with, they just provided me with some additional counseling. And then there's a 12-step program that I started attending called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. So I took as much of the time, and we had an extended severance. So I took as much of the opportunity as I'm looking for a job. I'm also diving into my own recovery and dealing with things that inevitably a crisis is going to bring about. And so I was going to 2 or 3 recovery meetings a week.
Yeah. And so about that time when he's doing all that is when I had those, 11 students interested, but that's exactly when The Road Back to You came out. So that whole year, I'm like on a surfboard paddling out to sea, hoping that I'll catch a wave. And I caught a wave, but then all of a sudden a tsunami comes. And, thankfully Jeff had a lot of skill sets. So he was like, hey, let's get some marketing people to work with us. Let's, and because he also worked.
I never would have dreamed of being an entrepreneur, but that part of me that served as an executive pastor to solve problems.
Right.
Were now directed towards a online coaching business.
Yeah. And you also worked for Michael Hyatt and Company on the customer service side.
I was just looking for part-time work, and so they needed customer support.
So he got to see a whole different side than what I was even seeing. And so with those things kind of combined, we just put it into action. And that's what was so great, is like what they teach, if you really just put it into action. Now, I'm not going to say not everyone has a tsunami that comes their way. So whatever your passion is, it may not have a tsunami, but I think it's really worth, taking those steps that, different mentors that you trust that are good and follow and see what happens. And so that's what we did. And then the Enneagram just kind of blew up in a good way. And then we basically were building a rocket ship as it's trying to launch into space. And, so it was beautiful, it was hard, it was challenging. He's trying to recover. I'm in pain too, but I am so busy. Which was my coping strategy, was like, instead of, avoiding conflict, I'm putting my head in the sand with work, right?
And we're talking 14-hour days. She is putting, the things that you see today were kind of birthed in that season of her putting in tons of hours.
Yeah.
She had a chair in our bonus room
but it was a lot.
It was a lot.
Absolutely. And to the point where, I've had to learn what healthy work-life balance looks like. And I think it's always going to be a balance act for me to figure out, because on one side, I love what I do. And at the other side, I know what burnout feels like. And that's no fun.
So maybe, there's so many questions I want to ask you. I want to ask you guys about being a type 6 and a type 9 and
go for it.
Pushing into entrepreneurship. I want to ask you about like how you look at calling nowadays, but maybe we start and then we'll piggyback off of this. So thinking about the different Enneagram types, or if there's a different way that you guys would want to approach this in transition, how might each Enneagram type experience transition, or what stress signals might be helpful for each type to be aware of when they are in a season of transition?
I think of 2 things to give you a little bit of direction, but not that I need to give you direction, you'll be fine. But I'd be interested. There's a temptation, I think, for each type that comes online. I'm going to handle this the way that I always handle problems. But then there's a gift that they bring, a strength that they bring to it. So do you think you could walk the wheel and do that?
Well, do you have an example that you would like?
I just think of the type 1, like the type 1 is going to be tempted to think that they can get it right. And that is not how this works.
Yeah.
We both had training in the things that we did. I had been doing church and marital mediations for a decade at that point. I had trained to be a Rule 31 Tennessee Supreme Court mediator even. I had raised money before and all of it failed. Like I could not get clients. And here you are with this personality tool killing it. But I think so for the type 1, if you think that you're going to be able to find the right way to do it, Providence is going to thwart it. And yet you can learn wisdom.
And the gift can be becoming more resourceful with creativity, but in a childlikeness. So
asking for help.
Yeah. And just in finding beauty in the chaos, that it doesn't always have to be just right or look a certain way. Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for the type 2s, let's see, nurturing supporters, I would say, they're trying to overhelp, get into other people's business and lives thinking that
they don't want to charge for their services.
Well, because are we talking about just
2s?
Enneagram coaching?
No, just like if they're going to be switching careers and become a coach or be an entrepreneur,
right.
They're going to want to help and serve people. And they've often had the hardest time of seeing that they actually have value that could replace income.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think for them, they're going to be really focused on other people and pouring themselves in one form or fashion. And a lot of times when they're not in a good space, they're going to think they're doing it the right way, but it will actually cross boundaries.
Did it ever feel selfish that you were working so hard and not attuning to what maybe I was experiencing and how much I was struggling?
Yeah.
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 Because I would imagine for a 2 that would be really hard to, we're trying to survive and yet my family is still hurting.
Right. Right. So I think for the 2, for them to have the self-awareness, the going inward, the inward inspection of where they at, what are their needs, and then being able to ask for those needs, I think is really crucial, but extremely hard. Growth for any type is hard,
Yeah.
And then the 3, the admirable achiever, they're going to definitely just plow in and keep going, Well,
I just think the part of the temptation for the 3 is that it's potentially that you've just faced failure for the first time.
Oh, sure. That, man, I coached someone who had just faced failure, and wow, the pain, the intensity it was really, sad and hard to watch. I mean, it was beautiful to watch him grow out of it, but it also was really. And
embracing for whatever the providence or circumstance may be, that because we've come to understand 7s, 8s, and 3s don't really fail. They learn.
No, the 3s fail.
Whenever you talk to them, they don't talk about a lot of.
Oh, well, they may not.
Yeah, they want to reframe it into something else.
They're not going to bring it up. But so like for the 3s, for them just to really welcome, a couple of things comes to mind is a collaboration, working with others. So instead of it being either the failure or the success all about them, to integrate with a team, a group, a community to work alongside, but also in a way that's more grounded and cooperative is kind of what I would suggest. The type 4s, man, yeah, this kind of disruption could really.
You can face a lot of rejection. Yeah, it proved what I believed about myself. I really am.
I don't have this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Like I don't have those qualities that people are looking for. So they're going to feel even more broken or misunderstood. And that can really send them into an emotional spiral. So, for them, I would just really encourage them to step outside of themselves to really connect with others that will give really good and meaningful relationship connection, but also take steps of actually doing stuff. Because if they are just in their emotions feel real. And not that, your emotions are real, but it feels like that's the reality or the truth. And so we have to be careful not to live in that without some objection or objectivity to it. So taking a step back or being around people that can give you truth lovingly to help you walk through that so that you're not just in that shame spiral, but you're also being pulled into a direction of more stability and emotional
I wish
balance.
I could come up with a phrase because it would tweet really well. Do you say tweet anymore? We're not on Twitters or X. Do you X stuff? I don't even know what you call it now. Post. We'll just say post. I wish I could post on social media. The phrase is don't let perfect get in the way of better. For like, don't let uniqueness get in the way of better, or whatever you're going to be trying in this next season. It's not going to be the fullest expression of what you want yet, but keep taking steps, like you said.
I mean, the 5s, they're going to definitely hightail it into their little sanctuary inner space for sure, and try to regroup, gather more information, and be a little bit more seclusive. I mean, which is, hey, it's very understandable when you've gone through a really hard season. I mean, you're trying to understand what happened and where you're headed. And then depending on what kind of resources were eliminated, that's going to make a big difference. So if you had like friendships and relationships, which take a lot of energy to build, if those have been taken away, man, where do you even start there? And then if you have, let's say, books and other resources that were a part of the company or the church or the program you were in, and those are gone, well, now what do you. So there's just a lot of things to recognize that can be really hard for the 5 to grapple with. So they're already fear of losing resources. And if they actually did, which they probably did because they've lost a job or they're in this transition, then what do you do? And a lot of times it's like, well, I need to gather more information. And that's perfectly fine. Yes, there's some really good reasons with that. But I would say the biggest invitation for the 5 is to step into action, is to recognize I have a lot of information in my head. I don't feel like it. I feel like I need more. But what if I took action with what I do have? I'll get some more. There'll always be more. There's the internet. Now there's ChatGPT. There's always more. But what if I did take action, a next step, and then the next step? What could be possible? And I think that will give a 5 confidence at the right pace and in the right direction.
I am curious, Evan, since you're a 5, you're in your office for this podcast, which is a special place. Like it's your space. But Beth's told me that some 5s even have a more secretive space.
They usually have,
Yeah, I love to.
They usually have places that they.
Is there another space?
There's private places, and then there's the place that no one's allowed, but them.
That's interesting. Yeah. So my kids call my office down in our basement the Bat Cave. So like, because I'm down here a lot, but even beyond that, which I don't do it quite as much, but for several years, beyond the office was just this place where I'd go to walk, and it was just me and my dog. Nobody else really wanted to go on a walk. I was processing everything you kind of said. Like, I spent 2.5 years sorting through stuff. I still, see a counselor and that kind of stuff, but got coaching, counseling, all that kind of stuff, sorted through a lot of stuff. Just kind of recently, maybe over the past 8, 9, maybe past year, kind of emerged and decided, maybe there's some stuff I can start sharing again. But what you described for me is definitely a shared experience. Yeah, so there's the Bat Cave. There's the trail where I walk. And then even beyond that, there's places where I go where, there's even more seclusion. It could be a river that I'm kayaking down that no one else is on.
And maybe there's no cell phone connection, or like it's even more perfect. Like nobody could find me.
It's just out there. Yeah.
Yeah. But here's
what kept coming. This is such a bad memory, but I recently, on my walks in the morning, I listen to movies. They keep me engaged in imagination and story. So I don't listen to music. I know it's kind of odd, but I was listening recently. What was the Robin Williams movie with Matt Damon? Good Will Hunting, that's right. And they're debating on Ted Kaczynski. And I just thought, like, okay, if Evan is out in nature and he's building a house, like he is off the rails, somebody needs to go help him.
So, but what I was thinking is, you had alluded to this earlier, and I really want to bring it up for the 5s that are out there listening, is, and I was saying it kind of metaphorically, but it should be done also physically is taking steps, walking, what I mean, or any kind of physical exercise, because that helps the fives get out of their brain and into their heart space and their gut space. So it kind of bridges them together. Whereas typically the five is just living in the brain, and it's almost as if they're very unaware of the rest of them if they allow themselves to go there. But a healthier way is to really integrate all of those spaces and physical exercise. And it could be just about anything. It does not have to be like, go do a marathon. It could be, like you were saying, just walking outdoors and processing, because that allows your mind to really start to process what's going on versus kind of your mind spiraling into analysis paralysis or in a place that it can't almost get out of. It's almost kind of like, because I know EMDR was formed from, I forgot her name.
I don't remember her name either.
Anyway, she was walking and she realized that walking and her eyes kind of going back to back helped. And so I think walking is such a great thing. And Jeff knows it way better than me because he walks 3 to 4 miles every day. I don't.
I'm going to jump into a 6, so let's keep it going. But I think for me, the hard thing, the burden that I had was the messages that I heard as I was leaving. So I heard some very meaningful critiques of my style of relating and working. And that stuck with me because it was like, wait a minute, I was trying to offer the best of who I was to this organization out of loyalty. And now that was not wanted and has become a problem, which becomes a part of the issue then of, okay, how do I enter into entrepreneurial life as if imposter syndrome isn't already a temptation for a 6, that I'll never know enough, have the right system, whatever to trust. Like all of that's fallen apart now. Where do I put my trust to move forward? And like I never felt enough for whatever it was that I was going to do next. But what was always there was this thing that 6s allude to, because Beth shared at times that, how would 4s describe their intelligence?
Well, yeah, 4s will say that they're intellectual.
And 5s will say
they are intelligent.
And 6s would say
they're smart.
They're smart. We're street smart.
That's the lexicon.
Scrappy.
Interesting.
I mean, it's
the wording that they would use.
Okay, like that. There was something about my capacity learn and act that I wasn't going to I didn't want to just learn anything and not do anything. It was learn act. So Beth was mentioning like how my role really became becoming her executive pastor.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What about 7s?
Yeah. So 7s, I mean, unfortunately I saw my dad kind of go through it, and, he kind of took off. Not like he was still with the family, but he literally took a sabbatical from his job, sold his company when he really didn't need to. But the emotional weight and the trials were too much for him at the moment, and he had no help and, like counseling help and that kind of stuff to walk him through what he was going through. And so he just sold it and then later had to recreate everything again. And he did. But I would say for the 5 is to really, the 7, to really go into the 5 space, to really slow it down, go inward and process what's going on, but to do it with someone that understands that you want to hightail it out of there. You want to escape. You don't want to be in that, but you're in it. And that's the thing about grieving and sorrow. Like you can't get out of it. It's going to catch up to you one way or another. And it did with my dad. He had seasons of depression and didn't know where it was coming from or why. And we're all like, well, it might be. But so if a 7 can be correct.
I love even the approach of it, because you couldn't just say like, I don't know if you remember this, but your life was totally disrupted. Like, well, no, let's be gentle. Yeah. I don't want to remind him of his pain.
Because then
they'll run.
Yeah, they'll keep running further. So you have to, you want to approach it in a way that they can listen and hear. And he did. And when he did get counseling and help, it really did drastically help him. It was amazing.
It kind of happened again, and he got help to get through that, and he stayed with it versus leaving.
Yeah. So that's what I would say for the 7s. And then the 8s, they can plow through. They're going to keep going. Like nothing's going to stop them except their body. And unfortunately, that is I mean, it is unfortunate because their body will usually stop, break down, get sick. Something's going to happen because you can only go so far, so hard, so long. Like we just can't. And so what I would really recommend for the eights is I talk about them in several ways. One of my favorite way is they're a big diesel snowplow instead of a bulldozer because they're designed to plow a path for others. So that's one. Now, of course, then they can plow over people if they're in a not healthy space. But the vision is, no, what they're really good at, what we need them to do is to plow a path for others. But the other analogy I use for the eights is think about like a light switch that has a dimmer on it. They just want to be on full blast all the time. And not everybody needs it that bright. And not everybody wants it that bright, but they love it that bright. But when you're that bright all the time, that your light bulb is going to burn out faster than if you know what? In this room, we only need about 60, 70% brightness for us to all really get things done and enjoy it. And it's bright enough. So for them to learn how to, dial it back in a way that is beneficial for them and those around them. But that can feel very scary because it can feel very vulnerable and it can almost feel inauthentic to who they are or what they've always experienced, but it's actually not inauthentic. It's a very authentic space for an 8, and it's where they're going to actually excel the most, and their body can recover and actually allow them to go longer and better for themselves and others.
It was interesting. I saw a recording, so this will be a little bit controversial. So, maybe you'd be able to use this, Evan. But I saw a recording of Mark Driscoll explaining why he stepped down from Mars. He believed that the spirit or God, I don't know what term he used, told him that they're setting up a trap. And I thought, that's exactly what an 8 would say. Yeah, so his staff were all leaving him. They were all confronting him on his abusive practices. But in his 8 world, he's being trapped.
Betrayed.
That's right. So what that meant is that he enters into a season thinking that in his world, I still have enough energy to recreate and keep pushing versus embracing this feedback, which would have been devastating for his ego to have owned and embraced. But this became a way that now baptized under spirituality, God told me I'm going to be trapped. Well, before we go there, let's look at who you are yourself and what you have done to others. But he was so caught in his 8-ness.
Yeah. And then last but not least, my type, I would say that for 9s will probably typically want to just numb out and check out and disassociate.
That doesn't mean that they're not busy.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
busyness can be the way to numb.
Oh, for sure. But I'm just saying, I remember there are many times when we were going through all that, I just wanted to almost sit still or lay still or just let my brain literally stop thinking because there was so much happening, so much to process. But the way that I went about it was I threw myself into work and building the company. And I would say part of that, it was amazing. As a 9, I'm developing myself. I got, my certification and I'm building a business. So that part of that is the right action for the type 9. But doing it at 14, 16-hour days of work probably was also a way of disassociating or numbing out from dealing with the pain at hand. So I think it's a both and. I think for a 9, what I would say is, go develop yourself, do your passion, get out there, be proactive, just not over the top like that. Be careful if you were to go in that direction. And that's the problem with inertia, right? Once, if you're stopped, you're not going to get moving. It's going to be hard to move. But man, once we're going, you better watch out. And not necessarily always in the healthiest way, and that's kind of what how does one year, my word for the year was balance, because it's okay, well, how do I work, but not overwork? how do I rest, but not then just want to completely numb out and do nothing? So it's really kind of hard to figure out that sweet spot for us. And so I think
I don't think you do figure it out.
Having people around me that
game.
Can offer some really good encouragement, that spurs me on, that motivates me. Those are the kind of things that, just watching, like when people say, I read your book or this or that, it's like, man, that feels great. I want to keep doing that. That feels, fills my life up. So, there's just lots of ways that I can keep active and keep moving, but just to be careful not to go too far.
Yeah. Thank you both for going there and spending some time on that. And anyone listening, like if you hear yourself even remotely in any of those descriptions, or something just seemed to like hit harder than maybe another description, Beth and Jeff have so many resources, so many things that could help you begin to explore that, navigate that. So highly encourage you to check that out. Do you guys have time for maybe a couple more questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So, one thing particularly, and it could be like this in other backgrounds and professions and all of those kinds of things. But it seems when I talk to a lot of pastors or people that have spent a significant time in ministry, when disruption occurs or they begin to consider or explore the idea of doing something outside of that context, their identity, questions like calling, all of these things start to become very challenging, and they're almost afraid that they're abandoning or leaving something behind. And one way that I kind of tend to look at the word calling or purpose and that kind of thing is it's actually something that can grow and expand and develop regardless of the context that we find ourselves in. Certain contexts are just one type of space for those giftings, skill sets, calling to function and operate in. So I'm curious with you guys, having spent so much time in a ministry background now, building and coaching and being the business leaders and entrepreneurs that you are, when you look back on your time in ministry, your transition, and where you find yourselves now, how do you think about that word calling?
It's interesting. I've not thought of it in terms of calling, although the concept of it has been very dear to my life since probably seminary. Well, even earlier than that, actually, because even after I soon became a Christian in high school, I was a successful Texas football player. And so when I became a Christian, it was a really big deal in our community. A lot of people knew about it because it was so dramatic, but then I don't know, it's that weird way that evangelicals love to perch up athletes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But it was soon after that having seen our church hire a new pastor, I was intrigued by it and sensed a calling to want to serve in that kind of position. And then I think we also had I would later begin to adopt a belief that calling wasn't just specifically to one thing, that I have many vocations in my life. I am called to be a father, called to be a husband. And so it wasn't just one thing. But there is something for some people, maybe not everybody, but for some people, that if our sense of identity, value, worth, significance is tied to a particular role, I would, from my perspective, just in light of my training, and I'm sure other people might have so this isn't necessarily a theological statement, but maybe a therapeutic one. I would suggest we're actually working out our story from our family of origin. So oftentimes, and this comes from my adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional family literature, oftentimes we are reimagining our family role, trying to not make the same mistakes that we made in the past. But just in God's providence and living in a fallen world, the church isn't going to participate in that, and they're not going to come through for us, and we're not going to come through for them. And so we're going to end up facing the same sorrow that maybe we're very familiar with from our past. And so for me, growing up in a home, there wasn't any alcoholism or addiction. It was that both my parents had been abused. My mom, even more significantly than my dad, but she also carried some lifelong illnesses that led to her early death. And so she was in the hospital a lot. So I grew up alone as an only child, but also adopted. And I found that I was trying to be the person who could save the church.
Mm.
Well, what happens when the church doesn't want me to save them? What happens when I'm not the guy they can call to fix it, or I can't fix it? Does that mean that my calling changed? No, it just means that I was kind of humanly trying to meet a need that I've had for a very long time. And that was probably the best thing. And then when you start getting into literature like David Brooks, I think it's his like The Two-Story Mountain or something like that. And then Richard Rohr's Falling Upwards, talking about the second half of life, that, hey, you've tried something, you've walked down a path, and now all of a sudden the scaffolding has fallen down. Do you try to rebuild? And what they're trying to commend is like these midlife crises incidences are there to disrupt so that you could build a more significant life in the second half of life, not built on the same principles of living out the pain of your past or the role of your past, to live out of a more truer self that's differentiated from past and maybe more differentiated from your role. So that was really hard for me, to be quite honest with you. The way it took shape for me is with Beth. So I've got all this training, multiple certifications, and all kinds of different things. And I mentioned earlier, Beth was Jeff's wife. I became Beth's husband. And so I'm the one with Gottman training, Allender training, mediation training, all this stuff. And
4 years of seminary.
And all they want to talk about is the Enneagram. And I'm like, we can go further than this, guys. And they're like, nope, we don't. We don't even care what you say. And it became a joke. My family from the movie Monsters, Wazowski, he's always covered by something on the screen. Something always covers him up. That was me. People are like, get out of the way. We don't know who you are, but we want to talk to Beth. And I'm like, where do I have value to this world? You remember this tension?
Oh, for sure. It was weird. It was the complete opposite of what we'd experienced the first 20 years of our marriage.
Right. And I was trying to, once again, reenact something of the past, that I'm okay whenever I'm not in savior mode, when I'm not there to fix things. I can still have value. So that's what comes to mind for me, is that there's a desire from the past to get attached to something, and that losing that role may mean something more to your story than it was about that particular expression of it. Because the reality is this, and this is a few of the things that really attracted me when I started to see your content on TikTok, is we had to redefine success, because I only saw success through the lens of what I was doing in the local church. Our, let's say, ministry, our influence is way bigger than it would have ever have been through a local church. But there's a part of my heart that doesn't even see it or notice it, because it's almost like it's so tied to, no, you've got to be in a local church, and you do this through your missions committee, or through how many people are in small groups. And it's like, wait a minute, we've got an email list of over 4 million people. Like, what? We have coaches in 30 plus countries who are living out, like they're creating jobs for themselves and income for their families, and coaching people with a Christ-centered, informed Enneagram presentation. Like, wait a minute, I'm doing the same things, but why don't I feel as successful this way versus if it was happening through a local church? And that's when I know I'm working through the past.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. That's so helpful too. Thanks for nuancing that. Beth, is there anything you'd want to add to that?
The only thing I was kind of thinking was just how I just feel really grateful to be in this kind of era. What I mean by that is we can have different callings and purposes and jobs and vocations, et cetera. 100 years ago, it's like whatever you studied or was an apprentice to, that's kind of it. You got to stick it out. Right now you can just kind of reinvent yourself over and over again, so to speak. And I think that's, can be really exciting for some people that are in this in between, and just realizing, it's exciting and fearful, but that we have that as a potential option. Now, of course, I'm not speaking theologically and all that stuff. I'm just saying, I think it's really neat that we can discover who we are and at the core of who we are, and branch out in ways that maybe we were afraid of before in either the jobs or the roles we were before, and try something new and see where we go. I mean, I didn't know that I could speak until I spoke for the first time on stage in 2018.
Beth has a reading disability, and she has read one of her books.
Oh, yeah. You mean like, what? No, I
did the audiobook. Yeah, you have done 2 now.
Yeah, one whole one and then one half.
Right.
Because you were.
But she has a reading disability. Like she would never have thought, never dreamed. Like our first Becoming Us book, it was like, no, not an option.
Yeah.
We tried it once. Nope, not going to happen. She was activated. Yeah. Oh, big time.
Yeah.
And then the second book, we got up through a little bit of it. Then it was like, Jeff, just do the rest. And then the third one, you did it yourself. You're fighting against how your story was named in the past. It is interesting. Evan, Perry Marshall, he's a marketing guy, and he mentored us for a while, but he talked about, when he was talking to me about my sense of calling, and now with Your Enneagram Coach, he said, you've been driving down a highway with guardrails and they told you what you needed to do next. And then one day you got knocked off the highway and you're on the road. And now you've pulled up to a field and you're scared to death because you don't know where to go, but you can go anywhere. Mm-hmm. And that terrifies you. Mm. Which speaks to this sense of, like, the reason why Allender talks about this. Whenever we face trauma, we get fragmented. Our sense of self gets fragmented. There's all these messages about who am I? Why did this happen? And we look for dogma. We look for rules to give us security to know, okay, what do I do in this situation so it doesn't happen again? And that's just not how God works. That's all kind of fleshly stuff of control and trying to eliminate sorrow and suffering versus taking risk and failing. I mean, I was talking with someone the other day. I'm like, yeah, man, until you get your first 1-star review on Amazon, I don't think you're an author. Like, facing the scrutiny of people. We would have dreaded that before. People have horrendous beliefs about who we are. Mm. And we, as conservative Presbyterian types, the Reformed Calvinistic types, that was our nightmare, was to be accused of theological error. I mean, yikes.
Yeah.
And now we're dabbling in this Enneagram, being accused of misleading the global church. Like, slow your roll, people. Who are you even talking to?
It is crazy.
It is wild. Thank you both for speaking to that. I normally wrap up all of these conversations with one concluding question, and it is, what does flourishing mean to you nowadays?
Good question. I think I'm still on the journey of figuring that out. I mean, if I'm just going to be honest, I don't even know, like, if I'm kind of putting on my Enneagram trainer hat, like, I just don't think there is a moment of arrival. I think we have moments that we get to experience it, because we're all going to have moments of growth and experience the healthiest side of ourselves, the truest side, the most authentic side, whichever, however someone wants to say it or call it. And yet the very next day or the next moment, the next season of life can really knock you off. But I think that's why I love the Enneagram as much as I do, is that it is an internal GPS. It lets me know much more quickly when I am not flourishing and what flourishing would and does look like for me. So then when I think I'm doing great, and then it's like, well, how did I get in burnout again? It's like, oh yeah, because I wasn't really paying attention when I started working another 10 hours, 12 hours a day and making excuses because, I just want to make people happy. And it's like, oh, that's what's going on. So I think flourishing has more to do with awareness and having tools to navigate your real reality versus it being some like high mountaintop experience. I think that's kind of what I would say. But I think most people are thinking of some really great feeling, which, hey, I would love to have that all the time. But I think it's more the ability and the awareness to grow.
Wow. Yeah, that's great.
I was thinking of one. I had a very it's funny. Don't worry, I got a call earlier too. But I was thinking of. We're right dab in the middle of midlife now. Month of August, we were with my father, who was showing signs of dementia, and it ended up being something totally easy fix, and he's doing fine now. It's just vitamin B deficiency, but we had to go down there for 3 weeks and take care of him, and it was really hard. And I'm in my childhood home, and Beth's trying to help me. She's also trying to help my dad, and it was really hard. And so I was going to say, what is flourishing? And I was going to say something like it being able to find each other in the fog. Like, we're much better at finding each other in crisis. Now, that's a very sexy comment, because I need to be in relationship to feel secure, which there's something true to that for all humans with attachment and secure attachment. So I would also add to that is a differentiated I. Who am I becoming right now? Not who am I, or who do I want to be, but who am I becoming right now? And staying connected with one another. That seems to be more flourishing for us right now, where we're not as, I don't want to say, because we still have aspirations, but we're just not as ambitious.
Sober-minded.
We're much more sober-minded, and we're much more concerned about staying connected with one another and doing our own personal work.
I love it. So where can people find more about the both of you, your resources, your work? Where do you want to send everyone?
Your Enneagram Coach.
Yeah, everything is Your Enneagram Coach. So obviously, yourenneagramcoach.com. We're on YouTube. We have a great YouTube channel with tons of free resources.
I did want to mention the More Than Your Number book came out of our transition. And so,
yeah, I would say More Than Your Number is, in all of our books are from a Christian perspective. And so, but More Than Your Number is a combination of the modality of internal family systems and the Enneagram. And it's kind of like you smush them together and it creates its own new thing. So we call it Enneagram Internal Profile. And you'll read about that in the book, but it's really almost a memoir, if you will, of our journey through the in-between. And how we use the Enneagram and the concept of IFS to really help navigate that inner world. And I think that's probably the most authentic and vulnerable book we've written.
Yeah. And we've written a marriage and parenting book.
Yeah. And then the journals. But yeah, so, the books and then we train coaches. We just love to see people flourish as we wrap up the word flourish.
Well, thank you both so much for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your insight and wisdom. I really do value this conversation. So thank you both.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Evan.